Ltap Center is very pleased to be working with the Florida Department of Transportation to bring you today's event, which is the Districts 1 and 7 Local Agencies Safety Summit. I want to thank you very much for joining. My name is Kristen Larson. I'll be your moderator today. So now just a little bit about the Florida Ltap Center. So the Florida Ltap Center, also known as the Florida Local Technical Assistance Program, is jointly funded by FHWA and FDOT. There is an Ltap in each one of the 50 states. There's also one in Puerto Rico. Here in Florida, we were founded in 1984, and since 2018, we've been at the Center for Urban Transportation Research at the University of South Florida. We are here to serve the local agencies in Florida through a variety of methods, as you can see here on your screen. We have a training calendar and a website, including not only our trainings, but those of other agencies as well. And we do have recorded webinars, and you can access those on our website by navigating to the section there. And those are have certificates available as well. And we offer technical assistance, and you can access that through the form on our website, and we'll get back to you right away. We have a variety of social media platforms, so I encourage you to link up with us on those that you see on the screen. We've just put those in chat as well. So we've got folks joining us from all over the state of Florida today, so really appreciate everyone joining us. So first up are the FDOT District Secretaries for District 1 and 7. So David Gwynn has over 35 years of transportation experience in Florida. He has worked over 30 years in the private sector and the past 5 years at FDOT, serving in roles of District Traffic Operations Engineer, District Director of Operations, and since July of 2017 as District 7 Secretary. LK Nandam has over 22 years of experience in the transportation industry in both the private and public sector. He currently serves as a director for District 1 of the Florida Department of Transportation and is a registered professional engineer in the state of Florida and an active member of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to David and LK, our secretaries, to kind of kick things off for us today. And I'll encourage you guys to turn on your webcam, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
All right, good morning. Well, I'll kick it off. And first, I'd like to say thank you. I noticed on our ticker there of number of people, we've got over 250 people already logged in, and it just keeps going up. I think that's a great sign that there's a lot of passion for safety, a lot of interest in how we can work together. And I'm excited with the fact that maybe even through these virtual meetings, we can even get more participation than we could having these in person. But first, I wanted to talk about a couple of things at the Florida Department of Transportation and also in District 7. But reiterate the fact that, you know, this is not a DOT issue. Obviously, it's not a local agency issue. It's everybody's issue. The state has adopted Vision Zero, and when we say Vision Zero, some people say, well, you know, you'll never maybe get to zero. Well, what we say is that that's our goal. That's the aspiration that we have, and we want to do everything we can to try to move in that direction. And we're not talking about trying to slow down increases in fatalities and injuries. We're not talking about keep it at the same level. We're talking about moving the needle. How do we make a significant difference in the number of fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways? And although many of these crashes that result in fatalities and serious injuries occur on the larger and higher speed roadways that are typically state roads, many of them also occur on local streets, on county roads, city streets. And so we have to look at it holistically. One of the things that Secretary Thibault implemented when he came on board was what he called the vital few. And the vital few are the things that, you know, we do a ton of things at FDOT. We do everything, maintenance, construction, all of that. But there are several things that really rise to the top that are essential, that are the vital things that we want to focus on. And one of those is safety. And I've been fortunate enough to be teamed with Courtney Drummond, our Assistant Secretary in Tallahassee, and Nicola LaCourie, our Director of the Turnpike, as the executive sponsors for the safety element of our vital few. And as part of that, we developed a team that is not just a bunch of safety engineers, it's not just a bunch of highway engineers. What it is it's a very representative group across all the areas that we work in and what we do in the department. So it included people obviously from traffic operations, safety, design, but it also included folks from maintenance, construction, from our operations centers, from our public information office, basically representatives from all of those types of groups and from all of our districts. And as a team, we came together with some goals that we wanted to do. in addition to obviously looking to move the needle on safety. But we wanted to first focus on what can have the biggest impact. And we found that 9 out of the 10 fatalities that occur on our roads fall into 3 main categories. One is lane departure, people that run off the road or that leave their lane and end up in a fatal crash. Intersections, where we have obviously signalized and unsignalized intersections, and then also pedestrian and bicycles. If we can make significant improvements in those 3 areas, that will have a significant improvement overall for the state. Again, that's 9 out of 10 fatalities are falling into those 3 categories. A few other things that we're doing, and I'm sure Brenda will talk about some of the things we're doing at central office, is we're looking for ways to better track our performance and to look for trends and to better focus our resources. There's a lot of data out there, but how do we really use that data to put together the plan that we have moving forward? And so that's also a big part of our initiative. In District 7, we've got a lot going on as well. As you know, we have a great group in our safety group led by Peter Hsu. We are looking at a number of things to include speed management projects. We know that speed kills, and we know that a lot of our roads, when they were originally designed, were in a different context than it exists today. There weren't as many pedestrians and bicyclists on some of these arterials. There maybe was not the same type of land development, but the road stayed the same. We're looking for ways to change the context of the road and change the design of the road to allow us to have speeds that are more appropriate for those corridors. And you've probably seen some things that we've started to do on Bush Boulevard and Hillsborough Avenue and others, but there's more to come. We're going to look to really try to make a difference in some of these speed management projects. We're also looking to continue to put in some of the newer technology for pedestrian crossings, whether it be the pedestrian hybrid beacons, the RRFBs, but also putting in an educational portion to make people understand how do you use this. You can't just push the button and walk out on the street. You have to wait for traffic to stop. So the educational component is a big part of that. We're also looking to provide more off-road bicycle facilities. We know that on most of the state roads, it's probably not the best place to have a bike on the side of a travel lane. So a lot of our projects are looking to incorporate paths, multi-use paths, or other ways for bicycles to get around without having to ride in the 4-foot segment or on the shoulder right next to traffic. We also have been working extensively with law enforcement, really picking up the high visibility enforcement campaigns, using them to help educate drivers and pedestrians and bicyclists on how they should behave and how they should act within the roadway. We think that that will have good long-term benefit. We're already seeing a lot more of our corridors having successful high visibility enforcement campaigns. Education is going to continue to be a big part. We found that during the pandemic, there was a big increase in the number of crashes related to younger drivers, mostly teens, and older drivers. There were a lot of additional crashes in that. We also, of course, saw a lot of additional crashes related to impaired driving and related to speed. And so there's a lot of education out there. We're going to work closely with the organizations that can help us reach those folks. And one other thing that we're going to be doing in District 7, I think we'll be the first to do it, but I don't think we'll be the last, is we're going to create a position within the district that is what we would call the safety administrator. And the safety administrator would be responsible for safety throughout the entire life cycle of a project, from the time that it's first thought of as a concept plan or as a planning effort, through PD&E, design, construction, maintenance, and finally, even if it's into asset maintenance. And the goal is to have one person accountable who'll lead a team that will be not just the safety team that we currently have in traffic operations, but will include people from planning, from design, from construction and maintenance. And they'll make sure that as projects progress through the process at the department, that safety is always being watched and make sure that it makes it through the whole process and doesn't get pulled out due to budget or due to schedule or any other item. And so we're really looking forward to that, and we should have that in place fairly soon. And so with that, the last thing I would just say is we know if we're going to have a chance to get to zero, if we're going to really be able to make Vision Zero happen, we're all going to have to work as a team. Our local agencies, the DOT, law enforcement, educators, media, all of us. So I'm looking forward to continuing this forward. I'm looking forward to what we hear today. And with that, LK, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, David. Hey, so I want to build on to what David said, right? The Secretary, part of his vital few, when he rolled out his vital few, mobility was the other vital few, because it's part of our core business, right? Providing the mobility choices. And I was the executive sponsor, teamed up with District Secretary Jim Wolf and Stacy Miller at one time, and Brad Thoburn, who's our assistant secretary, took her place. So the mobility team's charge was to figure out how do we provide the right mobility choice and make decisions so that we can provide the right mobility choices for the right area. And you know, it kind of goes into the fact that you look at by area type, right? You know, you go to Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, or the Tampa area, compared to Sarasota, Manatee, and then going into the rural areas. You know, the mobility choices that you're going to provide are going to be significantly different. So we were looking at what is the change in model for how we develop our programs and how we implement our infrastructure solutions, you know, and incorporating those mobility choices for the right area. That was the charge. And we came up with about 19 recommendations. But you know, throughout the journey, as we were talking about it in the past year, there was significant connection between safety and mobility, right? You know, if you don't provide the right mobility choice, and if you don't create the right environment as you're providing that mobility options, you know, you're going to create an unsafe environment. So there was kind of a significant overlap on some of the recommendations that came out of the two teams. I'm going to I don't want to repeat what David said, because we are pretty much doing all the things that he mentioned in our district, and you'll hear the same when you know, Brenda is going to make the presentation, and our folks in District 1 and District 7 are going to make a presentation on what we are doing in our district. So I'm going to talk about, you know, the fundamental philosophy of how to make a difference in safety, right? You know, I've been a traffic engineer for my entire career. And my philosophy as it relates to how I approach safety, you know, when, you know, managing and operating our facilities has completely changed in the past 6-7 years, because of the fact that over my career, particularly with the department, I've seen that, you know, these high crash corridors, every year when we get the report, right, that the same list keeps popping up. Right, you know, the same list keeps popping up, and then we invest so many safety dollars, you know, the money that we get through the Highway Safety Improvement Program, into these corridors, and we piecemeal all these improvements or the countermeasures that we implement. And what we're seeing is it's not moving the needle. You know, it's not moving the needle in the right direction, particularly in the aspect of the fatal and severe injury crashes. So, you know, I kind of figured there's got to be a different way of doing it. You know, there got to be a different way of handling how we build our facilities and operate our facilities to make a difference in getting those fatalities down to zero. You know, we talk about safety as a #1 priority for the department, and anybody you talk to in the engineering community, they say, you know, hey, I'm big on safety. You know, I want to make a difference as it relates to safety. But are we doing enough, and are we doing it the right way is the question, right? And you know, you talk about different functions that's involved in the transportation industry, starting from planning, going into project development, going into design, and then going into operations, maintenance, and construction. Is everybody clear on what their role is and how they can pivot and make decisions that is going to help with making a difference in improving safety and reducing those fatalities and severe injuries on our roadway system, whether it is on the state highway or on the local system, right? We're all in this together. So one of the things that we've done in District 1 is, you know, getting a group together. And I think, David, when you were with District 1, you know, you kind of started that conversation, right? You know, where, you know, we've challenged the group to come up with a safety action plan And the safety action plan was mainly to have each office look at their business and how they approach their business and how they are incorporating decisions that's going to result in a safer environment for our users. And it's been a great journey putting that safety action plan together. We're in an implementation time frame where each of the offices kind of like looking at what are the things that we're going to implement and kind of looking at the progress of the things that they've come up with on adjusting their business to ensure their decisions are making a difference as it relates to safety. The other thing is the other pivot point that I really think is going to make a difference is integrating transportation with land use, right? If you think about it, if you generate a heat map, right, within our communities, and the heat map kind of tells the story that most of our urban and transitioning corridors is where we are experiencing a lot of fatal and severe injury crashes, and those are high crash corridors that keep popping up. So different challenge compared to our rural areas with the crashes that happen. Why I say it's important to integrate transportation with land use is it's a simple term, right? Building the right street in the right place. If we build the wrong street, in a urban environment with a higher speed and not building the facility to accommodate the right mode, then we're going to create that disconnect, right, between the transportation facility and the adjacent land use, and vice versa, right? If there is a transportation facility that has a purpose, and if the community is planning land use that is inconsistent with that particular transportation facility, then you're creating that disconnect between the two, which is going to cause safety issues for both the users on the roadway, on and off the roadway, right? So what we've done is, we figured that collaboration with our local partners, but the right people in the local agencies, right? When you talk about the department, who do we interact with in the local agencies? Typically, it's the public works folks, right? So they'll think about it. We worry about silos in our organization. Well, silos exist everywhere. And the public works side on the local agencies, what we found is there is a disconnect between the community planning, urban planning, or the land use planning folks and the public works departments in the local agencies. So what we've talked about is how do we collaborate with the right people at the local agencies and kind of figuring that right customer so that we can work with them with the focus of integrating transportation with land use. What that means is we go to them and figure out what their plans for land use are in a particular area, whether it is existing land use or future land use, and then work with that group to come up with what we call a master plan for our corridor, whether it is a network or the corridor, which focuses on identifying what the treatment should be and what the facility should look like to accommodate all modes, okay? But identifying what the critical mode is, right? If that particular facility is focused on a pedestrian-focused environment, then that becomes your mode that you want to focus your corridor design on. So working with the local agencies and identifying the master plan for that particular facility is kind of like what we define as a foundation for our project development process. So once we develop that master plan, which is tied with the land use, which is consistent with the vision of the community, what the plan is for us, anytime we go and scope a project, whether it is a surfacing project, a intersection project, or a widening project, we take that master plan and we use that master plan to scope that project so that we incrementally build our transportation facility to match that community vision and to match that particular context, right? It's very consistent with our complete streets policy and complete streets implementation plan. And I think, this particular approach, if we can collaborate more with our community planners at the local level, we're going to make a difference because we're going to be building the right street at the right place. Now, the other thing, David kind of talked about speed, right? The other thing that's important is we got to pick the right speed for the right place, right? We have these urban and transitioning roadways where there's a lot of fatal crashes happening because of the disconnect of the speed that we've designed our facilities and what people are comfortable driving at, whereas what's going on in the adjacent land use. So it's important for us through these master plan development process, identifying the right speed for that facility, right? Once we identify the right speed for the facility, then trying to design and operate the facility and picking the right design and the right operations strategies for that facility to achieve that speed is going to be important. So we've placed a very high emphasis on speed management. So every project that we're going to tackle, we're going to focus on picking the right speed, and then what are the things that we can do within that scope of the project to achieve that particular target. So first step is collaborating with the community planners and identifying the master plan of what the corridor should look like. That's going to be the foundation for our project development and what we implement and how we operate our facilities. And then part of the decision process is identifying the right speed for the facility and then designing and operating the facility for that particular speed. Then the third item is related to, if you want to get to Vision Zero, right? We 1.5 years ago, the department adopted Vision Zero as a target. A lot of people, David talked about it, a lot of people say that Vision Zero, it's not an achievable target, but if you don't have a target, you're not going to be able to work towards it, right? But what does it require, right? A different type of thought process. And, different type of thought process in that, you want to make sure that as engineers and planners, we understand our role and stop talking about, crashes happen because of driver behavior and mistakes, made by the drivers, right? We have a responsibility as the professionals to look at those, what is my role and what am I going to do to make a difference so that I can control that particular driver behavior and I can actually reduce those mistakes. And if a mistake happens, right, how am I going to design my corridors so that if a crash happens, it's not going to result in a severe or a fatal crash? That's the important thought process we need to think about. So what we've come up, the term that we've come up with is how do we work on creating those self-correcting facilities, right? When we talk about self-correcting facilities, the way we build the facilities, the way we operate the facilities, if a crash happens, right, how can we limit that severity of the crash? If we can put that goal in our mind, we're going to make a difference and bring that fatality number to zero. So in summary, I want to make sure that, one, everyone has a responsibility, every function has a responsibility, and how we make decisions and how we incorporate decisions to improve safety. And secondly, change our thought process to not focus on just the engineering side of it, but start collaborating, break down the silo and start collaborating with our urban planners, community planners, so that we can integrate transportation with land use. And the third item is, make sure that, we're picking the right speed for the right area and designing our facilities and building our facilities for that speed so that we can limit the severity of the crashes. And then stop blaming the drivers, because we are drivers too. We make mistakes too. We all know we've been in crashes, right? Through our journey in life. So make sure that, we come to this challenge with the perspective of, what am I going to do to make sure that I'm going to plan or design and build the facilities so they are self-correcting facilities, and we're going to reduce the severity of the crashes. David hasn't shared his personal story, but one thing that I think we all as professionals miss is, we don't, a lot of us have not personally experienced a tragic loss, right? But just stop for a second and think about the crash that happened. And if it is a fatal crash, think about the immediate family and think about the immediate community and the impact that particular fatal crash had on that particular community, your perspective is going to change. You know, every one of our perspectives should change. It's important for us to empathize and connect personally to the impact of the families and the communities whenever these crashes happen. That's when we're going to work towards making a difference. So what I'm asking is, you know, we got the department folks, you know, and we got our local agency partners, and I'm sure your consultant partners are on this call too. You know, just think about those 3 to 4 fundamental things that I mentioned, and figure out how we can incorporate those things into our business. And I believe, you know, by implementing those 3 to 4 fundamental strategies, we're going to make a difference. Thank you.
All right, and thank you very much to both of you for joining us and providing us with those important opening remarks.